Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Friday. It's Daryl here. It's bright and freaking early. It's 3:30 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Okay, before I get into today's video, I just want to say this first. This kind of connects to what I'm going to talk about today. Basically, I just want to say I want to talk about things that I'm familiar with, first of all. Things that are in my pilot house, so to speak. So I can speak with some kind of experience or authority on it. So those are the kind of things I picked to choose to talk about. And as of lately, I've been going to all different niches in YouTube, which they say is the death of a channel. Don't ever go out of your niche, and I've done that as of late, and I've seen my views go down. Weird thing here, I've seen my subscribers go up and up. How that works, I have no idea. And I've come to this conclusion, it's almost impossible to pick what people are going to click on. What I've discovered personally over the last 5 years is a lot of it comes down, even when I click on watching somebody else's video, it's a very gut, visceral, instantaneous pick. Like you see a word in the title. I think the title is the key. People make their decisions up real quick on the title. And you make one video and you lose people sometimes that never come back. And, that's the way the cookie crumbles as far as I'm concerned, My bottom line is I'm going to talk on here. I'm going to talk about things that I'm experienced with, things that I find interesting. I'm going to be honest, and if I can help anybody, that's my goal. And I'm going to talk about what I'm going to talk about. Okay, so today, I'm a recovering addict. I've got over 15 years and 9 months completely 100% clean and sober. Do not misunderstand this video. I do not condone the use of any type of narcotics or substances, psychoactive substances, or anything of that nature. I do not condone it. I will never touch drugs again. Or, as we say in NA, just for today, I will not drink or use. Okay, that being said, just this morning, I don't know how this came into my mind, but I remembered back, I have used all types of substances. And back in high school, I did really good in high school, even though I used through high school. And I used mainly marijuana and psychoactive drugs, LSD, mushrooms, and mescaline, a lot of stuff that I'm not even sure if it's still around. And I'm going to talk about 3 instances because I still remember these instances, these trips. I'm going to talk about them, but the reason I'm going to talk about them, I am not promoting them, I'm not condoning them. If anything, I will never touch it. What I'm going to talk about today, I will never touch again. These aren't the drugs these aren't my drugs of choice, and they are extremely powerful. I'm going to talk about three times that I used LSD. And the reason I'm talking about this is because there's a lot of talk about the therapeutic value of microdosing, especially. Now, the links will be right down below if you don't know what microdosing is. If you're not familiar, I'm not sure if it's Washington or Oregon has moved towards decriminalizing drugs or using them, psychoactive drugs in therapy. I'm going to talk about 3 instances. Now, these are, like I said, I'm honest on here. And what I'm going to tell you is my 100% honest, what happened to me, my experience. And some of them, it's going to be hard to believe, but on my soul, on the Bible, these are true. Let me tell you the first time that I used LSD. Me and my friend, we were probably about 14 years old. We hadn't driven yet. And like I said, I did good in school. And I believe it or not, I had a group of 4 friends. And we were all different. I was artistic. We had one jock. We had one plane, the smart guy. We actually had 2 jocks. And we were 4 very different people. We all did good in school, but I guess we all had very curious natures. And we went on to experiment with drugs. And okay, so this one, me and my friend, we'll call him Rich. So I'm not going to give you his real name. We were 14 years old, and you ask around. This is in high school back in 1982, and you ask around who's got what we're looking for, blotter, acid. Bladder acid is a sheet with cut little squares where one little drop of lysergic acid diethiamide, I'm probably not pronouncing that right, one drop is put onto each little teeny square. They look like little tattoos. This is called bladder acid. Okay, so me and my friend bought one each. I tried it, and we acted kind of foolishly, but it didn't work. Looking back, I think it was old. You know, the drug had evaporated from the paper. So we did this. Remember, we're only 14 years old. We bought two each, 2 hits of bladder each the next time, and we took those, which we found out was a mistake. I had never tripped before, 14 years old, and for 12 hours, at least 12 hours, I thought I was insane. When I say that, I can't even stress to you enough. Unless there's this quote, and believe me, again, I'm not glorifying this, but this is the closest thing I've heard to describe what it's like to take one of these substances. It's like trying to describe a rainbow to somebody that's been blind from birth. It is impossible to tell you guys what the feeling is like. It is nothing like any other drug. The other drugs, cocaine, heroin, stimulants, depressants, are complete. Their body action. This is completely in the mind, and the only way I can describe it to you is that your subconscious and conscious both open up. You can't hide from yourself. I did a 20-page term paper my senior year in high school. I was actually in accelerated classes, and I had this one class, behavioral studies, and I did a 20-page term paper on Timothy Leary and LSD. So I learned a little bit about it, and I learned one of the most important things is be the state of mind before you take it. I have seen people lose it, freak out, and there's nothing that could stop this. If you take that person to the hospital, they really don't do much. They might give you a bit of a sedative or something, but you have to ride the trip out. And it can be a horrifying experience. It could actually feel like you're inside a horror movie. I can't explain it to somebody that's never taken it before, but the colors I saw, I didn't taste colors or see sounds or anything like that, but I stared at moss on the ground, and it was the color green that I swear on the Bible I had never. It was so vivid and so bright. It was just this amazing green that I'd walk by that moss every day for years, but that day, that color was just unfreaking believable. So that first day, we took too much, and I was terrified because it doesn't stop. I couldn't. I remember walking up to my house, and I knew it was my house, but it didn't look like my house. I remember looking in the mirror, and that's one thing that I recommend people using this stuff never do, because it won't look like you. It is intense. This is really a warning video. Unless you have a very strong mental state, I would never even consider using any of these things. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I want to tell you about this one specific time that I was laying in bed, and I had taken some LSD, and I was trying to go to sleep, and my mind's racing. Every time I closed my mind, I would picture it. I wouldn't just picture something, I would actually be there. And for some reason, I know this sounds crazy, but I would see the Sphinx in Egypt, and it felt like I was right there, like it was in front of me every time I closed my eyes. So I decided to do this. I did this exercise. I came up with it that night while I was laying in the dark in bed, trying just to calm my mind down. I had to give myself something to think about. And I pictured my mind as a blackboard. And I pictured a blackboard. And then I pictured writing 2 times 2. 2 times 2. And I wrote it down here. 2 times 2. And I could actually see the blackboard. Laying in bed in the dark with my eyes closed. 2 times 2 is 4. Then I went on 4 times 4, and I saw it in my mind, my mind's eye, and on the blackboard. 4 times 4 is 16. I went on further, picturing these numbers. You have to remember these numbers. 16 times 16, 256. I swear on the Bible, this is a true story. And yeah, I went on more. I went on to do laying in bed in the dark with my eyes shut, 256 times 256. And you see, I got this wrong the first time I actually did it out on paper. I got it wrong. But that night, when I was about 15 or 16 years old, laying in bed with my eyes shut, I pictured the blackboard. And you have to remember all these numbers when you're carrying down numbers. You have to remember all these numbers and keep them in their spots. And so I did this all out, I swear to God, in my mind. And I stood up after I got the number, and it's like there's a blackboard that you're picturing in your head, and it's right there in front of you. And I got up, I got a piece of paper on top of my bureau, pen, and I wrote down this number, 65,536. And I put it down on top of the bureau, and I managed to fall asleep that night. Later the next day, I got up and I got a calculator and I actually did it out. And it was right. It was right. I actually did this multiplication in my head. Like I said, I'm not promoting these drugs by any means. I think there is an opportunity for people to use this for therapeutic reasons. I remember specifically being able to see a side of myself. They talk about using it for depression and addiction. And this is kind of the third part that I was going to talk about. I remember tripping this one time, and I had an alcoholic man from Latvia that lived next door. And he was out in his backyard drunk all the time. And it was probably the same. I felt so bad for him. And he was constantly drinking, and he looked terrible. He looked unhealthy. And I was on acid looking at him from my backyard. And it's like I could see the reasons. I could almost see his insecurities. And and I remember thinking to myself, if he just took LSD one time, he would never drink again. He would see why he's drinking. I remember thinking that. Now, right now, decades later, I remember thinking it, but I can't put myself in that position again. I could see how this LSD could easily be used for this kind of thing, for psychotherapy and stuff like that. But I wanted to share this with you because I still remember this, and it was unbelievable. And there's a lot of other times. The last time I ever took this stuff was probably in my early 20s. And it takes a lot out of you. It takes a long time for you to feel normal again. They say to drink vitamin C and all this other stuff. But the safest thing for me, at my age, I'd be terrified to ever take it again. Microdosing is a way of taking a much smaller dose, which I did when I was younger, and it provides a much easier, lighter feeling. That's not as doesn't make you feel like you're clinically insane. And I say that right now, and I still. People think crazy or insane, and they can't imagine what it's actually like to lose your mind. But when I took this on that day, I knew what it was like to be insane. I didn't recognize my house. I didn't recognize my face in the mirror. It's an extremely strong drug that should not be taken lightly, and it might be able to be, from my experiences, it might actually be helpful in psychotherapy, and that's just my thoughts on it. But better than that, stay clean and stay sober. Recovery is possible. All right, you guys have a good Friday.